So during a recent trip to London, I heard several comments concerning the likelihood that the last remaining superpower in the world would be handed over to a tyrant. The sincerity of their concerns was striking. The very real possibility of a Trump presidency has been apparent to those outside the US, dating back to the early days of the Republican primaries when some UK legislators sought to ban Trump from entering the British Isles. Yet here in the US, large swaths of the population remained in denial, even lolling about the possibility of Trump even winning GOP nomination.
Could he actually win?
No freaking way!
Now, recent prediction models give Trump a 12% chance of winning the presidency, which is 12% more than I would prefer. Any chance we give this man still represents a threat, especially in a country where Republican voters have already lifted him up as one of the final two viable candidates for the presidency. Each stage of his campaign has been met with chuckles, and at each stage he has succeeded. Primary after primary, debate after debate, and as the laughter continued, I would respond, this is not a joke. It has never been.
He's not talking about policies. A lot of what he says is nonsense talk, but he is saying,
Now, why do I say this? Because, and try not to get offended here, what Americans value more than their own ego is money and the power that it can grant you, especially if that wealth is accompanied by some form of fame. After all, if you don't count the difference in personality, hasn't this happened before? A Republican celebrity with little to no political experience waltzing into a position of power despite barely being able to orchestrate a complete English sentence, who was able to capitalize on his fame to attract a rabid fan base infatuated with his stardom and seeking a change from the status quo. I give you the 38th Governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
I've heard your voices loud and clear. We have tough choices ahead.
I mean, my God, in 2003, Arnie was able to create so much noise that it resulted in California's first ever gubernatorial recall election, making then Democratic Governor Gray Davis the first governor recalled in the state's history, and just the second in US history. And this was all to make room for the Terminator. Californians placed high hopes in Schwarzenegger when he won the recall election to become the Golden State's governor, expecting him to perform miracles to lead California out of the deteriorating economy and huge deficit that generated so much noise that history was altered to make room for him.
I said to my friend, what party is he? My friend said he's a Republican. I said, then I am a Republican.
Schwarzenegger's biggest appeal, along with his superstar status, was his ability to talk big and speak powerfully, appealing to the masses. But he failed. Once in office, he failed miserably to lay the groundwork in the legislature to achieve his unrealistic goals. What started out as a Hollywood dream driven by the Republican Party ended in an economic nightmare as Schwarzenegger's vow to cut up the state's credit card ultimately resulted in the tripling of the state's debt, so badly damaging California's credit rating that for a time, it was neck and neck with Kazakhstan's. And the response to this catastrophe? Arnie, what a laugh that was. Can't believe we let that happen. Now, by no means am I insinuating that the Donald and Arnie are cut from the same cloth. Even though merely 2 months after Trump launched his presidential campaign, NBC announced that Schwarzenegger would take his place as host of The Apprentice. But both of their candidacies were initially met with the same response: laughter. Laughter that played a huge role in undermining anyone who suggested that these candidates should be taken seriously and viewed as genuine threats. Now, my objective is not just to rip apart Americans to make us UK natives seem superior. If anything, we don't have a leg to stand on. After all, we put our faith in a non-celebrity big talker like Nigel Farage to rally behind Brexit. But sometimes it takes an outsider's perspective to highlight our flaws. For example, let's say you live next to a sewage treatment plant. It would smell terrible at first, yeah, but soon you'd begin to get used to it, and eventually you wouldn't even notice the smell at all. It would become normalized. But then someone else coming into your house for the first time might say, dude, this place smells like to remind you that, oh yeah, my house does smell like This is why John Oliver's words carry so much weight in this country. He's not used to bathing in the usual filth of the American political system. So instead of joking and shrugging off the possibility of Trump gaining access to the nuclear codes, he demonstrated real concern, albeit using humor to do so.
We have mostly ignored Trump on this show, but he has now won 3 states, has been endorsed by Chris Christie, and polls show him leading most Super Tuesday states, which is a big deal.
And it's the same with Trevor Noah, who ensures that Trump be condemned and identified for the danger he poses, and not glorified as we've seen on Jimmy Fallon or given a full show dedicated to him on SNL. These appearances took place at the beginning of Trump's candidacy, when the joke was just getting started, but countless racist, misogynistic, and outright petrifying comments later, he's still having his hair tousled on late-night TV as if he were a little more than an otherwise harmless uncle who just speaks his mind a little too often.
Can I mess your hair up?
So I ask you, no, I beg you, not to be complacent, not to rely on leaked comments surrounding this disgusting individual to bring an end to this joke of a candidacy. These comments do nothing to alter the perspective of those already adamant that this is their guy. I mean, when you get people justifying sexual predatory actions like this.
I haven't heard it, and I know a lot of people who have not heard it. And
well,
I think
maybe
they
that's
were shocked.
maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the problem.
Or the grooming of a 10-year-old like this.
There's no way you haven't seen somebody else's son and said, wow, he's beautiful. Wow. I mean,
and thought I'm going to be dating him? No.
No, but that's...
You're on your own on this one.
All while continuing to pledge to turn out in force on Election Day. Do you think anything will change their minds? No. What may have seemed like a joke to you was deadly serious to them from the start. Don't believe me? Listen to them.
Now, Americans are loving Trump and the Democrats are confused.
Collectively, Americans' continued willingness to treat Trump's candidacy as a joke has helped his popularity grow and spread contagiously like a hate-filled disease that has to be cured. To those of us outside of American culture looking in, the joke was never funny. Because with all its greatness, America remains a nation captivated by fame and the bright lights of Hollywood to the point that you've become so blinded by the reality that individuals like Donald Trump begin to believe that they can do and say as they please with no repercussions. And they're right. You laughed while allowing this disease to spread. And now you have a responsibility to the rest of mankind. You have the vaccine. It's your vote. So stop laughing and get out there and solve the problem you created. Vote in real life.